Sure does feel wonderful to be back in business, doesn't it? I've been bored here all break, sitting around and, well, doing a lot of nothing. However, now that classes have finally resumed, I can finally say that I feel productive. Alrighty. And salutations to you as well, my dearest Moxie. Now that we're here, why don't we go ahead and take a gander at some comments on my videos. I'm sure that sounds like a lovely experience, doesn't it? Ah, look at all these lovely Homo sapiens and their very lovely comments on my... Do my eyes deceive me? How dare he!
Hey.
Explain yourself.
I will. Just tune into the next episode.
No, this is not a video opener. Explain the comment you left on my latest post.
I mean, to be fair, that is a very, very specific video. Ain't no checking for no political colors.
Sir Kakko, flags are not political. They're just national symbols.
Your face is a national symbol. Oh, got him!
I have no idea how he put up with you for this long. Anyway, you do realize that your statement of who asked is logically inconsistent, yes?
First of all, who the f*** is he? Secondly, who asked?
You just asked, Sir Kakko! You asked 2 questions!
Yeah, and I expect the answers, you homo sapien, without the sapien.
I'm heterosexual, you miscreant! Fine, you want answers? I will give you answers. I can't stand for this. I just can't! I need to address this. And I know exactly how to. Salutations, Homo sapiens. We like to talk. We always have and always will, really. Conversations and argumentation are what makes our society even possible in the first place. So we should all allow others to share whatever taste they would like, as well as anything that they have done over the day. That's easy enough, right? No, of course not, because we must be pretentious to one another for no particular reason. Being cordial is just far too much work. Today, the most common response to information that one finds irrelevant, unfavorable, or both is the infamous "Who asked?" line. Why I love Moxie. Who asked? Pretty straightforward, I suppose. For a dismissive counter-argument, it's the easiest way to get someone to stop talking and reconsider his or her self-worth. Yet, it literally makes no logical sense. Not even in the sense of fallacy either, as there is no premise that the statement somehow operates on and misinterprets. The premise itself is flawed, and today I wish to demonstrate how. You may not have asked for my opinion on this matter, but neither did you ask me to explain why Rubik's Cubes aren't that difficult. You watched that video, well, a few of you did, so the fact that you neglected to inquire shall not discredit my position. Let us begin the dissection. I could summarize the argument here in one simple sentence. As a matter of fact, it's a really simple sentence. Who asked is an illogical statement because it's a question. The statement, which questions if anyone had created a question, is in and of itself a question. Whether it has the question mark or not, actually. Yes, question marks are typically required in normal English to signify if the preceding text is an actual inquiry rather than a standalone comment, but in response to that point, do you typically use a period when you're sending a text message anywhere online? The answer for 90% of you would be no. The explanation for this would be that sending the message is the indicator that the sentence is over. That may be different for me personally, since as a distinguished gentleman, I try my hardest to maintain the most pristine grammar I possibly can, but the typical Homo sapien does not care for the conventions of written English. All's to say that whether the question mark is included or excluded, this phrase is a question. After all, if it were supplemented with a period, it lacks the context needed to be a grammatically correct thought. This needs an object of the asking to make sense. Anywho, since this is a question, it begets a response. All you need to say in response to who asked is, you just did. If they don't wish to accept that response, you simply explain that the bastard who attempted to silence you was asking a question, and that same bastard will either accept defeat or simply give up on the argument. Either scenario would be a winning condition for you, and you shall continue expressing your thoughts. Hooray! Alternatively, you could instead assert your dominance by declaring that you yourself had asked, which is also not easily refutable. Here's an example of my own from the previously mentioned Rubik's Cube video. A gentleman, not a nerd. Who asked? You just did. It really is that easy, all things considered. Now, there is a way to circumvent this grammatical paradox if you really are so desperate to not hear someone out, but why would I provide the naysayers with more ways to naysay? Oh, that would be against my good nature. Let's put it like this. If you don't like what an individual is telling you, you could at least communicate that fact in a bit of a more tasteful manner. For instance, when Moxie gives me non sequiturs during my videos, I don't instantly shut him down, I at least allow him to speak.
I miss my wife. Can you please bring her to me?
Well, that's not totally relevant to the current discussion, my good sir, but I will say that I recognize your request.
Come on, you don't even care.
Moving on.
That's the first half of this problem, and if you don't like that explanation because it's too technical, firstly, get over yourself and accept that your go-to line operates on a paradox. But secondly, there's another point that needs to be mentioned. You see, you don't have to ask to obtain information. I know, what a revelation, am I right? If the sharing of perspectives and facts was solely transactional and operated only upon inquiry, society would be a complete and utter failure. Nobody would speak to one another, relationships would cease to be genuine, pretty much the entire fabric of humanity would tear itself apart, and we'd be unable to develop in the manner we currently have been. What an absolute tragedy! Am I taking this way too seriously? Yes, I absolutely am, because this is critical to the world we live in today. Thoughts, all thoughts, are needed to facilitate the development of true ideas and innovations. You know, unless your thought is objectively incorrect, because that's absolutely something that can happen. Regardless, the point that I really want to drive home here is that Homo sapiens do not need to be prompted to speak. That is an unrealistic and borderline totalitarian concept to have in mind when in conversation. So, not only does your premise operate on a grammatical, logical inconsistency, but it also operates on the complete opposite end of the rational concept scale, a scale that I just made up myself for the sake of this rant. Don't like it? Didn't ask for it? Well, I did. I asked myself to make this scale and I said yes. You can't have it all. You just can't fucking have it all, can you? Woo. That was very improper conduct on my end, wasn't it? My deepest, most sincere apologies to all of you for such an extreme reaction. I do believe my point is still applicable though, both points. Who asked is both literally untrue when worded in this specific manner, and also contradictory to how we should communicate as a species from the start. We should be far more open to experience than we currently are as a society, and even though Homo sapiens can be factually wrong, it does much more for us to correct than to oppress. I hope that this has made itself clear to all of you.
Look, I try my hardest to be a kind sir most of the time. Stuff like, that, well, it never ever happens. However, when I have to engage with something that contradicts the very fabric of our world, mind you, against my own choice, well, needless to say, it doesn't become very pretty. You can even say that it brings me towards a path of oh dear, I should really stop speaking before I'm found out. My dearest Homo sapiens, please strike everything I have just stated from the record if you please.
This is definitely one of my shortest claims to date, but considering the absurdity of the statement I am arguing against, I don't believe it needs much of my attention. The flaws of the Who Asked one-liner are self-evident, and I must admit to being surprised that they aren't as widely noticed as they really should be. The question gets a 2 out of 13 from me for how nonsensical it is, and how it just logically does not add up. I could just be acting pedantic in how I spot these issues out, but even if that were the case, it still wouldn't negate the problems. It's good to ask questions, inquiry is a beautiful thing, but it also just is not a requirement to hear about information. It takes an OR gate, not an AND gate, to decide if anything should or should not be shared. If you claim to not have inquired, first of all, yes you did, given the grammatical structure of the statement. But secondly, even if you corrected that and really didn't inquire, we have established that you don't need to. With this video, my goal is to completely eliminate this excuse and to promote the expression of ideas and subjective experiences, whether totally relevant to the world of today or not. Unless you are a Husker Dust shipper, in which case I really don't fucking care about your opinion, and you may not have even asked for my input on this topic, but it really doesn't matter since I decided to provide said input anyway, and you've either acknowledged my words or completely disregarded them. Either way, I will extend my metaphorical olive branch to you and advise you all to enjoy yourselves, even if not totally deserved.
Oh, goodness gracious, that was totally uncharacteristic of a gentleman like me, wasn't it? I really need to calm myself down. Yikes. I should really do something to soothe myself now, shouldn't I? Oh, hey, well. If it isn't my Gigamings, this will take me a good, I would say, 20 minutes to resolve, and that'll be 20 less minutes that I have to think about this blasted argument.
What about my wife?
Look, Moxie, you were expensive enough as is. We'll figure things out as we get there.
But
I'm a college freshman, Moxie. Please allow me some grace, won't you?